World, communism is still very much alive and well in your backyard. In just a few moments, we will meet real-life American communists. Now, here's your host, Richard Bay.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Last week, one columnist said in New York Magazine, there's only one thing that's crumbling faster than New York City, and that is communism. The world has been mesmerized over the last few weeks as they've seen communism not only fall, but be outlawed in the Soviet Union over the last years as it fell in Eastern Europe. Some people saying communism is dead as an economic form of government across the world. Other people, though, this morning are saying that communism is still the best solution, the best system. Not for Russia, not for Eastern Europe, but for America. Last Friday, you saw the unemployment figures come out? If you factor in all the people who have been unemployed so long that they've stopped even looking for jobs, it's about 10% of the country that's unemployed. We've seen the savings and loan disaster, leaving not only ourselves paying off interest and money, but our children and possibly even our grandchildren. $400 billion, perhaps even more. All right, you're going to hear some people speak out now about communism for America. And you may get angry, but you may think twice. They've been part and members of a party that's been around in this country since 1919. Jarvis Tyner is the chair of the New York State Communist Party. Judith LeBlanc is an active member of the Communist Party of the United States. Jason Rabinowitz is the national student chair of the Young Communist League. Terry Albano is the national education coordinator of the Young Communist League. In a few moments, they'll be joined by WABC radio talk show host Bob Grant and Anthony Imperiali, a local political figure, both of whom are very supportive of capitalism and the American system. But right now, let's hear what they have to say. Please give them a round of applause. Okay, you're smiling! You're smiling. What do you have to smile about? The Soviet Union is falling apart. Eastern Europe has crumbled. In China, we saw a movement of people who in the end, were put down by tanks and guns, but there was a desire there to change the system there. Why are you people smiling?
It's a beautiful day. We're happy to be here. The world has many problems that have not been solved by our system, and we believe that the future is going to be a good future, where we can eliminate poverty, unemployment, all those things you were talking about, save New York City.
But is communism dead now? After, I mean, the American Communist Party had very close links with the Soviet Union for years. Who's going to support you? Where's going to be your example to point to say, hey, there's a system, it's working, they're trying to work the kinks out. Are people going to join the Communist Party in America?
Our organization comes from our own country, our own soil. That's because capitalism exists in our country, in our own soil. So our struggles come from what exists in our country. It might have, you know, been gone, in there might be problems in the Soviet Union, serious setbacks, but socialism isn't a fad like Bart Simpson T-shirts or something like that.
Were you heartbroken when the Soviet Union outlawed the Communist Party?
Richard, it's more than heartbroken. It's an atrocity. And the reality is that you cannot talk about democracy in any system if the communists are banned. And in the Soviet Union, the communists have done tremendous things in 70 years. I know, but wait a second. You're saying now that it's a terrible thing, but there was no other party but the Communist Party in Russia before this. There was no democracy. How come you're upset now and you weren't upset before when the people didn't have a choice?
Well, how do you know we weren't upset before?
Were you upset before?
We thought that every system should have multi-party when the objectives and conditions call for it. They could have multi-party. In fact, in the history of most Eastern European countries, they had more than the Communist Party existed. Peasant parties, farmers' parties. The Socialist Unity Party of Eastern Germany was a combination of 3 or 4 different parties.
But the American Communist Party for years made excuses for Stalin, made excuses for what happened with dissidents and what happened to people in Siberia. The American Communist Party was never pointing its finger at Russia, at least for most of its history, and saying, hey, you know, clean up your act. You're the showcase for socialism and communism.
Richard, untrue, untrue. In fact, what is true is that we've always been very, very partisan to the system of socialism, especially in the Soviet Union. I think what you brought up earlier is very important. Yes, there's certain new difficulties for us because in the Soviet Union, the Communist Party and the leaders of the country made some big mistakes. And the reality is they're human. And so therefore, we do have certain problems in trying to explain what we would do differently here in the United States. Not problems, new opportunities to explain what we're going to do.
Do you really believe that you'll live today to see the day when America is communist?
No.
Any of you?
No. We believe we'll see the day, close to the day when America is going to be socialist, which is the first phase. You see, we call ourselves the Communist Party, but actually, the first thing we're working for is for socialism. And we do expect to see us come close to where there's a national health care system, where there's full employment for everyone, where there's free education for all, where housing is subsidized so that everybody has a decent
Would you like
house.
to see the day, though, when there is no private property?
When the big corporations are owned
no, but when you don't own your
Absolutely.
house, when you don't own your
That's not
land,
what we're talking
when you don't
about.
own your
Look,
car,
when it comes down
personal
to
property.
What?
Yeah,
We talk about big
all
corporations.
right, but personal
it comes
property,
down to-
you want to give up your personal property?
Richard,
No,
what we're
that's
talking
not
about
gonna
is
be
the
bad
big
case.
factories, the big farms, because what it comes down to is that in this country, under capitalism, what that system means is that it's set up to make a lot of money for a small bunch of people. And in that sense, you could say capitalism is a big success. Capitalism never says it's going to provide people with full employment, with education, with health care. And we say that those are human rights, and those are democratic rights, which should be provided to all.
But we do have free education.
We don't have free education
try to go
nowhere.
to Harvard.
In fact, you should talk to the students at the City University of New York in California, in 35 states where the crises in education is leading to tuition being hiked, financial aid being cut, and services at schools being drastically decreased.
Okay.
That's the education in this
Okay,
country.
are young people responding to what you say?
Absolutely.
In the Soviet Union, we saw young people take the barricades against communism. They were there rebelling against their
At the
system.
at CUNY in New York, the students have taken over buildings to say that they don't want tuition to go up by hundreds of dollars so
But do
that
people come to
regular
you and
working
say
people
they
can't
want to
get
become
an
communists?
education.
Yes.
Where do you go to
Some
school,
people do that.
Jason?
Well, I'm a graduate of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, which is another school where the economic crisis has led to whole departments being shut down, teacher layoffs.
But communism is attractive to young people?
Well, I think that young people see that there's a need for free education, and so all the major student groups are calling for free education as a human right.
How did you go to
and
Amherst?
that's something that's
How did you go to Amherst? Were you part of the ruling class that got to go because you came from a rich family? How did
No,
you
this
get
is
to
the
go?
University of Massachusetts.
Oh,
It's a
University.
state
How did you
school.
go to University of Massachusetts?
It's a state school.
But how did you go? What does that mean?
What it means is that it's not as much as, say, a private school.
All right, so you paid some money. You worked as you
Yeah, I
went
paid
along.
money. I have loans to pay off, just like a lot of people. In
Well,
fact,
what's so bad about that?
Well,
What's so bad about
is
working
that
for your
is that there's a huge number of students who are in default because when they get out of school, they can't get a job, and they find out that they can't pay back their loans. And so many young people don't even have the opportunity to try to get an education, no matter how qualified they might be.
Okay, let me clear up a few other things, too, that are said about the Communist Party. Violent overthrow of the United States government, and yet you're against the Constitution, that basically you want a revolution in this country, and if people will elect a communist government, fine, but if you need a revolution, if you have to do it with guns, you'll do it. Are you for the violent overthrow of the government?
That's been used against us.
But is it
since
true?
Our inception.
No,
Of
we're
course
not for violent overthrow.
You're not for violent overthrow.
Bill of
Never
Rights,
have been.
socialism.
Bill of Rights, expanding our Constitution.
Okay, number
is what
two,
we're
you're
for.
anti-religion, godless
I
communism.
was raised religious. I support the right of anybody to be religious that they like.
Can someone
And
be a
such
Christian or a practicing Jew and be a
And we have
communist or a
many who
Muslim?
are.
What?
We have many in the party who are.
Okay.
Absolutely correct. And in fact, that the goals and the values of socialism, providing for all people, a system based on people's needs first, I think that's something.
And what do you
that
say to those
religious
people
could
who
do.
say it'll never happen? This country is built on individual spirit, individual motivation, incentive, private property. People, the Horatio Alger story,
We have no
that it is
problem
not
with
part of the
individual
American
incentive.
tradition, that it'll never happen, that you're anti-American, this country will never be communist.
Richard, precisely for the reasons that you bring up, that's why it's possible in our country, because the American people are not stupid. And when the American people realize that we have to run for office, that we have to change the direction the country's going in, there'll be big changes. There's always been in the history of our country, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, the organization of the unions.
But you say it'll happen.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. Okay, what do you think at home? In the Soviet Union, they banned the Communist Party from practicing in the republics, in most of the republics in the Soviet Union. Should we outlaw the Communist Party? At times there have been proposals that we should. Is communism still a threat to America now? The Soviets have outlawed communism. Should we? Give us a ring at 201-480-VOTE. Press Y for yes, press N for no. We'll be back in just a moment with Bob Grant and Anthony Imperiali, who have a different point of view. Stay with us.
As racial tension continues to stalk our streets, you will meet people who claim to be the new black leadership on tomorrow's Nine Broadcast Plaza. And revenge, how sweet it is. Oh, how luscious that moment can be. Coming up on Wednesday, you'll hear the bizarre story of a murdered photographer who raped and abused models until one boyfriend got even. That's on Wednesday.